This is a story about a girl who was so tired of being invisible that she went looking for magic.
Oh,
Nova was the quietest, smallest girl in her class, which wasn't surprising because she had a name like a planet and parents like astronomers. But unlike her bright, shining namesake, Nova felt dull and shadowy. That's because when she looked out at her classmates, she saw a room full of loud, giggly boys and girls who seemed to have found their place in the world. Meanwhile, she spent her days drawing pictures of faraway galaxies and planets and dreamed of one day becoming an astronaut. But right now, all she wanted was a friend. But when the bell rang, it was hard to catch anyone's attention. After all, how do you stand out when your best feature is your invisibility? Feeling dejected, Nova slipped out the back door and hurried down the street. She didn't want to go home, not with its echoing silence and locked windows. But she also didn't want to stay at school, not with its bullying hallways and silent classrooms. So instead, she ducked behind a large bookshelf in the library, hoping no one would notice her there. It was then that she saw a tiny glow coming from between the dusty books. And as she peered closer, she realized it was coming from the pages of an ancient book stuck behind the shelf. Its cover was made of pure silver and studded with sparkling jewels, but what really drew her in was its glow. It called to her like a beacon in the dark, promising light at the end of the tunnel. As she carefully lifted the heavy book, the rain outside suddenly stopped, and as Nova blew a stray strand of hair out of her eyes, she could have sworn the clouds parted just a little bit to let the sun shine through. Then, as if drawn by an invisible force, she opened the book, gasped, and fell right inside. For a moment, Nova felt nothing but falling. But then she landed softly on a bed of clouds and looked around in amazement. She found herself in a world made entirely of books. Towering stacks of novels floated past her window, while cozy cottages made of paper stood nestled among the trees. And in the distance, she could even see a majestic castle made of leather-bound manuscripts. It was everything she'd ever dreamed of and more. Then a talking shadow hopped onto the windowsill beside her. "Well, hello there," it said, grinning from ear to ear. "I'm here to welcome you to the Betweenlands, where stories come to life and every page holds a new surprise." Then he bowed dramatically. "I'm also here to tell you that you are our chosen hero, Nova." Confused but excited, Nova asked, "Chosen for what?" But before the shadow could answer, the book tumbled off the windowsill and landed open on the ground below. And as Nova leaned out to grab it, she heard a voice call out, "Don't touch that book, thief. It's mine." She turned and gasped. Standing before her was a boy with messy brown hair and stormy gray eyes. And although he was small for his age, his expression was anything but. "Who are you?" she whispered, backing away slowly. "The name's Finn, and this is my storybook," he said, puffing out his chest. "And you can't read it because I haven't finished writing it yet." Just then, the shadow hopped onto the windowsill again and said, "Quick, Nova, we don't have much time. You need to fix his story before the ink dries." Before she could reply, the book in her hands began to glow and whoosh. She was gone. When Nova opened her eyes, she found herself sitting in a strange bedroom. All the walls were covered with scribbles and sketches, and in the center of the room sat a large desk piled high with papers. On top of it sat a quill pen and a nearly empty ink bottle. She reached out to take them. A gruff voice said, "What do you think you're doing?" She whirled around to find a boy with rosy cheeks and tousled golden hair standing in the doorway. He crossed his arms and narrowed his eyes. "I've been working on this story, and I don't have time to start over." Nova swallowed, trying to remember what the shadow had told her. "I'm here to help you finish your story," she said quietly. The boy shook his head. "You don't understand. If I don't finish this story, my whole world will disappear." Hearing that, Nova's heart broke. Could this be what it felt like to have your whole world depend on you? To save someone else's story might mean putting her own dreams on hold. But then she remembered how lonely she'd felt when she left her own story unwritten. Taking a deep breath, Nova stepped up to the desk and picked up the quill. "Well, where did we leave off?" she asked gently. The boy hesitated, then walked over and took the chair. As he began to speak, Nova wrote furiously, determined to help him put his thoughts to paper. Together they worked until the last scrap of paper was used and the final dot of ink was dried. And when Nova reread the story aloud, it was clear to both of them that this was the boy's greatest adventure yet. As the story ended, the room began to glow, and the boy looked at Nova with newfound respect. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Before she knew it, Nova was tumbling through the pages of the book once again. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the world of books. But now the sky was filled with shooting stars, and the air sparkled with magic. And there in front of her stood the shadow. "Well done, Nova," it said with a flourish. "You have proven yourself to be a true friend and writer. Now it's time for you to return home." Wiping tears from her eyes, Nova hugged the shadow. "Will I see you again?" she asked. "Of course," the shadow replied with a wink. "We will always be connected by stories." Then it waved its magic wand, and poof, Nova was gone. Back in the library, the book lay forgotten on the shelf as raindrops tapped against the window pane. But when the bell rang, no one moved. For the first time in forever, Nova wasn't afraid to stand in the hallway alone. As she walked out into the sunshine, she realized that even though she might never see the shadow or any of the characters from the book again, their adventures had changed her. She was still a quiet girl with a name like a planet. But now she knew she didn't have to be invisible to find her place in the world. All she had to do was follow her curiosity and let her imagination soar. From that day on, Nova was a different person. She started raising her hand in class and even made a few friends. She also kept writing stories, not because she had to, but because she loved it. And although she never forgot the magic of the Betweenlands, she no longer needed it, for she had found her own story, and it was everything she had ever dreamed of and more. So if you're ever feeling invisible, remember, your story is waiting for you. And even if you don't know where to start, all you have to do is follow the magic inside of you and let your imagination soar. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, if you want to see more stories like these, just hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because after all, who knows where your story might take you next?